Here are 4 steps that you can take to start to build your own strength program and start to work in the right direction to have strength training, associate well and supplement your actual running performance. So the first step is every strength training program should be individualized. So there are some staple movements like the squat and the deadlift that seem to, for most people, work pretty darn well when it comes to getting stronger and progressively getting stronger over time. But that doesn't mean you have to do a specific form, one specific form of the squat or the deadlift. There are a bunch of different variations that you can use. So for the squat, a lot of us think squats is the barbell back squat, and that is a great exercise to do, but you could also do things like box squats, Bulgarian split squats, goblet squats, the list goes on and on. And for deadlifts, we think conventional barbell deadlifts where you stand over the bar, you bend down, and you pick it up. But there are sumo deadlifts where you change your stance a little bit, and that works different pathways and different muscles in your body. There's barbell Romanian deadlifts, which are very centrally focused to the hamstrings. There's dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. And again, the list goes on and on for deadlifts as well. So all of those variations and more kind of easily allow you to add weight over time, to make progress over time, and to focus on things like explosiveness and speed and other factors that are going to kind of target strength development very well. So depending on what your experience is and your comfort level is, you can play around with exercises that you feel comfortable with and that you find that you can progress with over time. And I think that's a really good place to start. And then we can move on to step number 2 that complements step number 1. And what we're doing here in step number 2 is we're choosing accessory movements that complement the main compound exercises. So we talked about squats and deadlifts. Those are probably good to incorporate in some form or fashion. And then you can choose other accessory movements. And by accessory movements, I mean typically non-compound movements. So a compound movement or a compound exercise is going to involve multiple joints. So a squat is a compound exercise because your knees are bending, your hips are bending. That's 2 joints in your body that are moving together to complete the lift. Deadlifts are the same. And there are a bunch of different other compound exercises. But so a squat would be a compound exercise that targets your quads. A leg extension only involves one of the joints in your body, which is the knee joint. Now, leg extension is where you're sitting at a machine and you're kicking your legs forward, specifically using your quads to lift the weight up. That's what I mean by accessory movements. So exercises that are typically single joint exercises, and they target a specific muscle or muscle group. So choose those accessory exercises to complement the compound movements that you're doing. Step number 3, I want to make this very clear. Just because we're trying to complement your running performance, that doesn't mean we neglect the upper body altogether. You 100% should include your upper body in your strength training program. Now, if you're doing 3 days a week, maybe you only have 1 upper body day and 2 lower body days, that might make sense. But make sure you are also working the musculature of your upper body. And step number 4, you want to manage your training volume. Now, this is where it probably gets trickiest for most people, because if you're a serious runner and you want to seriously improve your running performance, you're probably running a lot. And then if you add strength training to the mix, it could be easy to overtrain. It could be easy to be doing way too much and get yourself in a situation where your body cannot recover from the amount of training that you're doing. So I put together some benchmarks in terms of training volume, and I'll walk through those now. So if your training status as a lifter for strength training, as that pertains to you, if you would be considered a beginner, I would suggest maybe doing 3 to 6 sets per muscle group each week when you're lifting weights. If you are an intermediate strength trainer, I would say between 5 to 10 sets per week for each muscle group. And then if you are advanced in lifting, you could probably go from 8 to as many as 15 sets per week for each muscle group. Those are good general places to start. And then from there, you can play around with your training volume to see how much lifting can you do and still improve your running performance. If you get to a point where you're increasing your training volume with your strength training and you start to see that your recovery is negatively impacted or your actual performance while running, if that's negatively impacted, then it's probably time to scale things back a bit. But those are good places to maybe get you started.